Good evening and welcome to another session of our Facebook Live Q&A. We have a very special guest with us tonight, one of our most enthusiastic and engaging tutors, Emily. Welcome, Emily.
Hi, how's it going?
Thank you so much for joining us. Emily recently contributed a very interesting blog. It's called Tricks and Treats, a tutor's perspective on anxiety, where she shared many strategies to cope with anxiety and told us about some of her experiences with students. And tonight she'll be sharing some of those with us. She'll also be talking about online education, and she will also be sharing some best practices and some resources that she has used quite successfully with some of her students. First, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about the signs of anxiety that you've noticed with our students during lockdown and then post-lockdown when students returned back to school. Thank you, Emily.
Okay. I think one of the major signs that I've seen since COVID came in is a lot of my students are really tired. Like, I've had students that I've been tutoring for over a year, and they're normally quite energetic and all of a sudden just don't have energy to do anything. And I think it's because the body goes through so much stress with this anxiety all around us. And children and young people pick up on it so easily that it really impacts them without them even realizing. So fatigue is a major one, and then restlessness. Like, my students are finding it so hard to sit down. Like, I know it's quite normal for students, they want to get up, they want to, do some star jumps or something to like break up the work. But, especially with the online students, they need to get up every couple of minutes to go get something, or there's this new restlessness, even though they're a lot more tired. So I noticed that, especially during the lockdown. And then after lockdown, there's actually been a bit more communication about it. So my students have been saying that they're feeling quite nervous or quite anxious because they have missed a lot of school, and getting back into a new routine has been quite challenging. I've had a student just go from primary school to secondary school, and the jump just seems so much harder now than it would have pre-COVID. So that's been a pretty major thing. So it's been good to work alongside them and helping them process the anxiety while still helping them with their confidence, with their learning. So that's been really great, like having that opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Emily. I think we have all noticed that on a daily basis, and it has increased significantly from the lockdown and onwards. And unfortunately, when children went back to school, they didn't feel quite prepared to deal with all the anxieties that the uncertainties of going back to school entailed, really.
It was a huge jump. Sorry, who said that was me. It was a huge jump. They're going from having set work every day, and I've had a few students say, "Oh, it was so easy. I got it done in 2 to 3 hours," and you're just like, I think work should take slightly longer than that. So you're kind of wondering what is being set and also kind of what information is actually going in. It's quite easy, I think, to set at one task and you've just learned this thing and you're repeating it, but it doesn't seem to go into the long-term memory. And that's another thing I noticed is the memory of my students. Oh my goodness, it has definitely decreased a lot since the lockdown. I think like most of us, like all of us, the days kind of blur into one. So I have noticed that I'm having to do a lot of like memory techniques and games with them to help them remember the information. And yeah, it's been quite an adventure, definitely learning how to adjust, not just as a student, as a tutor.
Emily, in your blog, you pointed out some of the different strategies and activities that one can use to cope with anxiety. And I was wondering if you would mind sharing some of them with us. What strategies, what activities can students, parents, tutors, of course, use to try and cope with anxiety and mitigate it as much as possible?
I think anxiety is such a challenge because it will appear differently in everyone. So, coming up with these like tips and advice, some might work for some people and others not so much. Exercise is probably the major one, and I know a lot of us don't want to do it. I will say myself, not a big fan, but it's really good for the endorphins and getting that energy that you do need, and it can help break up your day as well, especially those working from home and students studying at home. It helps break up the work massively. Definitely not my favorite. I would usually recommend nature. I feel like being in nature, walking around trees, like the grass, everything makes us feel more grounded. Grounding is probably the best tool to help with anxiety. There are amazing techniques out there. There's things called grounding blankets. They're like slightly weighted blankets, and they're fantastic to help with anxiety. I personally actually find them really useful for studying because they help you stay focused. We've all been there. We all have the same thing. It's hard sitting at a screen for several hours per day. So yeah, nature, we got exercise, mindfulness. Mindfulness is a big one, and it's not easy to actually set aside some time in your day to look after yourself or, to breathe. Breathing is a massive one. I'm sure all my students are just sick of me saying breathe. It's amazing. You put a question in front of them and they're like panicked, and you're just like, no, breathe. You know this. It's fine. And it's actually one task I set all my students every week to complete every day is a mindfulness task. It does differ from student to student because they have different needs. One of the favorites is this hand exercise, which they use to help with handwriting, make it neater. But it's also good, you're just like stretching out your finger muscles. But it's good to actually just sit down for 10 minutes and do this activity because you're so focused on it, like your mind kind of clears. So it's really good for anxiety. And then my other students, I have one student in particular who loves coloring. Coloring is amazing. They have coloring books for adults as well, which is great. Really recommend them. But ever since she started doing that, so I started setting her that homework, I think it was about 4 weeks ago, to do every day. And she is so much calmer and a lot more focused with her studies, I've noticed. Plus, she just loves it. It's great. And then I'm trying to think back to my blog now. I think the one that everyone's expecting, anyone who knows me, music. I am incredibly biased about the power of music. I think music is the most incredible tool for everything and anything. You're finding it hard to get the motivation to clean your house, put on some music, you'll get it done. I use music a lot with my students in different ways. So I use music as a way of remembering. I think actually all of my students are really good singers. It's incredible. They have so much talent. So I would write songs on certain topics with them. We work on lyrics together and we will actually record the songs. And I've had students with poor memory come back, be able to sing the entire song back to you and actually remember the information. And then I have another student who struggles a bit with her reading. So what we do is we play her favorite songs and we follow the lyrics. And doing that actually, it eases her. It helps with the anxiety that she usually feels when it comes to reading. Like you can almost see someone stiffen up when they're faced with a task that they are afraid of doing wrong. So music, 100% one of the best. And I think the major point I made in the blog was just looking after yourself. That's all we can do during these times is actually take the time to care for ourselves and look after ourselves. As I was saying before, children, young people pick up on everything. And if they pick up on someone else's anxiety, they'll feel it themselves. So it's kind of you put on your own oxygen mask before you put on someone else's. And that's kind of like a rule for life, I think. So yeah, do those self-care things. Treat yourself to, a Lush product once in a while, or watch that movie that you've been wanting to watch, but everyone says it's awful. Do little things for yourself to keep anxiety at bay.
Sounds like they are very engaging sessions. I certainly enjoy reading the reports. And it's good that a tutor will go above and beyond and consider the individual holistically and not only consider the educational or academic rather aspects of any session, but also to also care about the student's mental health and consider that as part of the equation.
I think it's vital.
Absolutely, absolutely agree. And Emily, one of the causes of anxiety as of late, and we have mentioned this before, has been the fact that so many students have been forced to switch to online education, which in itself is not negative, we should say. The possibilities of online education are limitless, but it's been a bit of a forced change, which no one was really prepared for.
Yeah.
And before we talk about some of the positive aspects, I'd like you to tell me a little bit about some of the negative consequences that you've noticed in students from having to switch all of a sudden to remote learning during lockdown.
Yeah, I think it was a massive shock to the system. Children, they go to school, and school's not just about education, it's about socializing. You're learning all these skills, you're meeting all these people, you have all these friends, and you do get into this routine, and for it to stop all of a sudden is a shock to the system. I do remember some students saying, it was a bit chaotic with the online learning because there are a lot of students on with them. They don't have that opportunity to stay behind after the class to ask a question. They don't have the opportunity for one-to-one time with the teacher. And, if they feel like they're falling behind, I think a lot of them, they might miss something for a second. And all of a sudden their confidence is just shot because they're like, oh, I missed something and I can't say anything because we only have this set amount of time altogether online. So I think that was probably the major negative for them, for their schoolwork to be online. It was an adjustment, tutoring, I have to say. Like, it's a lot better now, but I remember in the beginning, I missed my students. I missed their energy. And I had students say the same back, it was missing that contact. But saying that, they're so resilient and they're so good with technology. I have students teaching me how to use platforms. So I think that has been a positive in the sense that their confidence with it has increased. So they like it whenever they have to show you how to do something. But I think, the major one is just feeling like they were falling behind. I think that was a major negative I came across when talking with them.
It certainly has been. Now, let's address some of the more positive outcomes, which we have also noticed. And we have also realized that, as I was saying, the possibilities of remote learning can be limitless provided you've got the right support. You have had a good measure of experience in this area, and I'd like you to tell us about some of the positive experiences you've had directly through interacting with students online. Please share some of these experiences with us tonight.
Oh, gosh, I have so many wonderful experiences with my students. They're fantastic, that's all I can say. With online, I think it's fantastic that there are things that we can cover now that we probably wouldn't have face-to-face. Having that access to technology, access to websites as well. Like, I was a bit of an old school tutor. I didn't really use computers. I was very much like pen and paper because I was like, they spend enough time on screens. But it has been incredible. You just bring on the screen like a word search. That's been really popular with a lot of my students. Like, doing a word search at the end of the session, it's a bit of a wind down, and you can also cover topics that you've been doing. So I personally love making them. Anyone who knows me, any of my students who know me, know that Minecraft is a massive, massive tool that I use because I think it's a fantastic platform. It's been around for a super long time. It's been used in like education. So this is actually, I'll show you one of the word searches that I created. for my students. There it is there. And it's fantastic. This website is called thewordsearch.com, and they have all sorts of topics, everything. There's a wee note for my students there. But they absolutely love it. And it's a way of engaging with any topic, which I think is fantastic. You see there, it's the word search maker. So I really, really recommend that. And that's one that's been hugely popular in my sessions. And as I was saying, Minecraft I use quite frequently. Maybe too frequently. I'm very, very biased in Minecraft. I remember reading 5 years ago is when they started introducing it into education in Northern Ireland through Culture Tech. And even recently, at the start of the first lockdown, I think it was Minecraft, the company, gave away 50,000 free copies to the schools in Northern Ireland because they use it as an educational platform, which is fantastic. And there's so many different aspects with it. They have their specific educational Minecraft, which goes through coding, which I've noticed a lot of students know how to do. I have no idea. It goes over my head. But I think it's awesome that they're learning this, I think, really important skill moving into the future of technology. I usually prefer taking other aspects of Minecraft. One of my favorites is, because I usually would tutor English, creating stories and story mountains. And one, I found this here on Minecraft, and it takes you through how to actually build a story. This has been hugely popular with every single student I've had. They tend to set their story in the Minecraft world. Usually it's fighting the Ender Dragon or something like this. And they've written some fantastic stories. I've had one student who created a whole different universe within Minecraft about underground witch taverns, and just having the opportunity to express her imagination through this was amazing. I actually recommended that she send it to Minecraft because I think that they would pick up on the ideas. I know there might be some hesitation because parents might think, oh, it's a game, they spend enough time playing games. I wouldn't say increase the game time, but definitely having that idea of game doubling up as an educational tool is fantastic. And the good thing about Minecraft as well is they continually update the game. They add things like different ideas that children and young people have entered into competitions. So it's good to kind of engage them with that because they might actually have the opportunity to change this game, which I think is wonderful. It's fantastic. I think I have one last Minecraft. I'll stop talking about Minecraft after this, okay? But I have another, because I've been teaching science with one of my students recently. And there's a whole science aspect to Minecraft. And you can build periodic tables, like this one shown, which is just phenomenal. If growing up, if you could have imagined having a game where you could actually go through the elements of the periodic table is incredible. So I've taken up this image here. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a hold of my students. She did a better job, in my opinion. She ended up doing the periodic table and had it mirrored onto the ground, which was really, really cool. And we're excited to get stuck in. She even built a science lab on the game. I remember her mom sending me a message saying she's never seen her daughter work so hard at her homework before. I think that's the way to do it. You got to make learning fun, and adapt it 100% to each student. Sorry if I've gone off on a tangent completely about Minecraft. There are other tools that I use, but I'd definitely say that's the most popular with all my students is Minecraft. Another one is, because I work a lot with dyslexic students, just finding quirky ways of because spelling is often quite difficult with a number of my students. So I would give them letters, jumbled up letters, and they love it. Like anagrams of sorts, but it's just like the jumbled letter game. And it's incredible just to see how their confidence increases, and they actually engage a lot more with words, something they were kind of fearful of before. They're now using in a different way, and as I say, way more confidently. Um, and it was actually, going back to the word search, one of my students, my dyslexic students, has a gift with word searches. It's incredible. She can get words, the backward words, the most difficult words she can see in seconds. And it's incredible. It's like her superpower is what I call it. Um, I think I've gone off on quite a few tangents here, John, so you might have to catch me. But I do think that the most important thing with the education online is, as a tutor, is to adapt to the student. Because if you don't keep it interesting, I think, or engage in their interests, there are so many other things that could distract them around. And I just think that it is important to play to their strengths as well. Because, as I say, the confidence has taken such a hit since lockdown and going back to school. That's been a challenge for a lot of my students. So having that opportunity and that space to, as I say, explore their superpower, or do something fun, and gain confidence from that, I just think it's amazing.
Very interesting examples. That's one of the definite benefits, one of the most wonderful benefits of bespoke tuition, the fact that you can integrate so many of the students' interests into these academic activities, as you have just proved to us. And with regards to the online learning, we have noticed, of course, that it's a little harder to build rapport with students. But we have managed to do so. It may take a little bit longer. And I'd like you to share some of the best practices, some of the strategies that you may have used in order to keep your students engaged online and interested in activities that may otherwise not seem so interesting to them.
Yeah, that has definitely been a challenge. A lot of building the rapport is actually being there in person, having that energy. And I find it really important whenever I was tutoring, because there's some days when your students are slightly more tired and they might need to do a more gentle part of a topic, or do it in a different way, or there's so many things to adapt to, and you don't really get energy through a screen. That is definitely a challenge. Rapport, I've been quite fortunate that my students and I get on quite well. So off the bat, we've been quite good with building that rapport. It might take like 1 or 2 sessions more, but it's been great. And I think as well, children and young people are a bit more accustomed to screens and talking to their friends online. A lot of them game online. But that's been a challenge in a way, I think. Just knowing how to think on your feet a bit more without having that energy to go off of. To help with it, I always start every session asking my student how their day has been and how their week has been. And a lot of the time, kids will answer, one word, fine. Or one of the students love saying decent. That's one of their favorite words. But I think it's important to, just wait. And, often they'll say something a bit more, or, you could ask a specific question, like, how's the sports been going? Like, you pick up on things that they enjoy engaging with. And I think taking 3 minutes at the start of every session to just catch up, it definitely helps, as I say, with the rapport and also with engagement, because you can kind of tell through the energy of their answers what are they up for that day. Sorry, John, I think I forgot the second part of your question there. You're asking how to adapt to the report.
Yes, to keep everyone. Yes, I was just wondering how you managed to keep them engaged, really.
Right.
The hardest aspects of tuition, especially when it's remote learning. But I know you've been very successful. I was just wondering if you had any anecdotes to share, maybe.
Oh gosh, I would use humor quite a bit with my students. They love a bit of dry humor. They love puns. Puns are great. They are fantastic. Some of my students have some great puns as well. I love it. Like, you do get to think of all sorts of things. As I say, one of my students in particular, she loves singing. She wants to become a singer. And having the opportunity of taking my musical background and helping her further hers, if that makes sense. Like, we're taking a topic of cells, and it's quite, I think everyone can agree, it's kind of a dull subject. You're talking about the mitochondria, talking about the nucleus, but we managed to turn it into like a full song, like an indie rock song. And I have to say, it was absolutely fantastic. She loved it. She really, really enjoyed it. She came away wanting to do songs for every topic, which has been a bit challenging since for me, because I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I play this genre? But it's been amazing, I think, having this opportunity with remote learning for students to kind of find what works for them. I have another student who discovered that, as I say, word searches help them remember spellings. It's finding those different techniques that I don't think we would have had the opportunity to do before. So I guess little silver linings. It's important to look for those during these times, for sure.
I thoroughly enjoyed reading that report about the song. It sounds like you had great fun. Well, we don't have time for any more, unfortunately, Emily, but thank you so much for sharing some of these experiences,
Thank you.
funny anecdotes, and really, really engaging sessions that you seem to have had with your students. It was great having you here tonight. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for watching. Everyone have a great night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.